everyone, welcome to the Innovation Circuit with Theta, where we discuss the latest tech news and trends and things of interest. On today's panel, we have some fabulous folks from our digital team. We have Philip Fourie, who's our digital practice lead. Hey, Philip.
Hi, everyone.
We have Hamish, who's a lead digital consultant. Hamish Norton. Hey, Hamish.
Hey, guys.
And last but definitely not least, Meg Hope, who's a senior consultant in the digital team as well.
Hello, everybody.
So thanks for joining us. This month's topic is very near and dear to my heart. It's around mobile apps. So let's start with the basics. What exactly defines a mobile app these days, and why is it such a big part of our everyday lives?
I automatically think of my car seat. I suppose why I think of a car seat is I think it is the boundary between being able to use a laptop or a desktop and using a device. And when you're in the car, you might have your phone on a rack, or you might have your Android unit or your iOS equivalent. And so that, for me, is sort of the boundary. And there's probably other devices that we interact with. Take the supermarket, shop and go, checkouts, things like that. And then there's other things as well, little things.
Yeah, little things like your smartwatch, your Aura Ring, your wearables, the smart screen in your fridge that tells you when you're running out of milk. It's the new Internet of Things. It's everything external to your traditional, as Hamish put it, where you can whip out your laptop. It's everything else.
It reminds me when we back in school we were taught about the definition of what's a tool, and we were taught a tool is an extension of a person's hand and mind that enables us to do things that we otherwise would have been inefficient with, or it's something that would have been impossible. And I don't know about you, but whenever I go out and I leave my mobile device behind, you notice it quite quickly, but it feels like a limb is missing. It really has become a part of what we are as a species.
Or for some of us, it's even is a limb.
Exactly.
You used to leave the house and make sure you had your wallet and keys. Now you make sure you have your wallet, your keys, and your phone.
Exactly.
Oh, exactly. My phone is my key. My phone is my wallet.
How many apps do people tend to have on their devices these days?
Look, Liz, it's really broad because, as you've noted, everyone uses their devices differently. Some people are attached to them. Some people try to limit their usage, but as a universal sort of boundary, people usually have about 40 to 80 installed on their devices, but only realistically around 9 to 15 are used regularly. So if you think about those apps that you install for, that one very specific use case versus the ones you are doom scrolling on every single day.
Indeed. So when does that make sense for a business to actually invest in a mobile app versus, investing in a website or something like that? What are the reasons that companies decide to invest in mobile in the first place?
Hamish, do you want to take us off here? Because I think you have a really good outlook on this.
Yeah, I think the big one is ease of access that I automatically think of. And if your customers have that need where they want to be able to do something quickly and easily, then that's sort of the key trigger to it. And then you obviously start extending to, well, you can do other things with a mobile device that you can't do with a browser as easily. Your device has a bunch of hardware features, phone and so forth. So yeah, ease of access. If you've got to do something repeatedly, then it's a yes please for mobile.
Yeah, it's that customer first approach, right, Hamish? It's less how can a business benefit for it, and more how would your customers or your clients benefit from a mobile app. One really interesting use case is if you find that your users, your in-house staff, or your customers are working in locations where they might not have good data coverage, then the offline capability of a mobile app could be really useful. Perhaps in field, and as Hamish put it, you want access to the camera. Having that in your hand, as you put it, Hamish, your ease of access, really useful. that's where you really need to think about whether your particular use cases, your particular business needs or customer needs could align better with a mobile app.
Another thing that comes to mind for me is when I compare mobile apps with web and desktop applications, mobile apps bring something special to the table when it comes to branding. They offer this powerful, persistent digital real estate, like a billboard in your customer's pocket. You're constantly reminded about the app and a company every time you scroll past it on your phone. And then if you combine it with push notifications, they can generate a constant ambient awareness of your brand on your customer's phone as well.
That's so true. Like, we were talking about how many apps do you have on your phone. I kept quiet for a reason. I've got 126, but today it went to 127. And the reason being is I got a text message from New Zealand Post saying that they were going to deliver a parcel between a certain time, had to be signed for. And I was saying, I don't want to get a text message because they're asking me to respond to if I want to delete it. And I was like, that's going to cost me money. So I could just have a push notification if I got the app and respond in the app.
Case in point.
Exactly. It's that move away from like a newsletter type communication where you feel really stuck in how you can communicate with your customers to when you know they're going to be checking their email and desperately kind of hoping that they do pick up on your email and their never-ending inbox of notifications, and instead having that little prompt right in their hand.
So you guys are obviously developing apps for, customers on a daily basis. How does a business kind of evaluate the trade-offs between when it's best, for them to, I guess, build an in-house app versus using a free or a no-code, low-code type application development process? When should they need our help, I guess?
Yeah, so there's a lot of those low no-code options on the market, and there's a real place for them. They're great for concept proving. So if you have not had a mobile app before, you're very new to what your needs are and what you want, it can be a really great stage step for the iterative process where you're thinking about design, you're thinking about flow, you're thinking about the concept of how you want your users to navigate or use the app. It can be a great testing ground for you to be able to trial out those ideas in a way that is very insular and is very business focused. But there's real advantages to going with an IT partner, particularly an IT partner that has a lot of experience in mobile app development, because it is an IT space that is very filled with pitfalls and quicksand. There's complex app logic, custom UI, performance tuning, all these things that are part of developing. They're part of developing a mobile app, but they're not part of the initial build process. And building an app is ironically a very small part of that development process. Design, user experience enhancements, testing, deployment, maintenance, app store reviews. That's the areas where having that specialist assistants who are experienced and have seen an abundance of ways that it can trip you up can be make or break with the app journey. And Hamish himself and Philip have both seen those problems arise.
Yeah, I like the mention of App Store reviews. Because that quite often it can be a hiccup and a real sticking point, and that you don't get that as part of the bundle when you build an app in a low-code environment. It doesn't come with that. The other one that quite often comes to mind for me, because I'm that guy that thinks about unplanned work and trying to avoid it and think about our whole DevOps process, is that being able to deploy it again and again, and then being able to make that process easy. And then how do we debug the code? If there's a problem, how do we work through it? How do we work with it? We need to make sure that that part of the process is quite well refined. And I think the reason for that is because it's probably going to get onto our next subject a little bit here, but the reason is that you want to be responsive to what your customers' needs are. And if you can't do that, then you can't be responsive to their needs, and then the lifespan of the app becomes a whole lot shorter, and you put all that investment in, but you didn't get much out because you couldn't keep it going.
Yeah, and that iteration you're talking about, Hamish, it's we've seen it firsthand. It can create some really bloated code, particularly on these low code or no code tools. If you're having difficulty debugging and you've got a really nuanced problem, that can be really difficult to diagnose within these solutions without that technical expertise. And so what you end up with is quite a bloated solution that can have real performance drawbacks, but also just makes it really hard to maintain.
I've got to say one more thing. I think some of those low code options are getting closer to being almost viable. So I think it's a real good space to keep a watch on. And even as us as consultants, we're keeping our watch on it too, because we want our lives to be as easy as possible so that we can give customers as much bang for buck, basically. And it brings more joy the more we can deliver faster, right? Yeah.
Exactly. If it's going to take the boring and repetitive stuff out of the equation, I'm all for it.
And I'm observing the two different teams, mobile and web teams on it. There's some special things on mobile. So teaming up with someone that has a few battle scars, definitely it makes sense. That's a smart move.
I like that you say battle scars, Philip, because I feel like Hamish and I definitely have some stitches in our side. Especially from things like, as Hamish has said, the app store review process. I don't know a single mobile app developer that hasn't gritted their teeth when they've gone to hit that review button.
I started thinking about broken bones, but I don't think it's worth going that far. I would say maybe a few sprains along the way.
That's our experience. We know the height that we can jump.
So what are some of the kind of common downsides of building a mobile app that businesses should be aware of? I think you've mentioned a few already. I'm just wondering if there's any others to add into the mix that might be handy for people to understand as part of this conversation.
Yeah, I think one big challenge in the space is fragmentation. And it's both platform fragmentation and device fragmentation. And what I mean with this is you first have to decide which platforms do you want to target. These platforms I'm referring to are the Android platforms, normally run by the Google Play Store or the Apple ecosystem, and then upcoming ones like Harmony OS. So once you've decided for your specific business use case which platform you want to target, you need to make a second choice on which technology you're going to use to target those specific platforms. You have to make decisions like, do I write native code for each operating system and get a benefit of these specific platform features and performance benefits? Or do you go for cross-platform framework like Flutter or React Native that allows you to invest in a single code base and deploy it across these different platforms? So that's the one part. Then you also have to deal with the device fragmentation. And we have to keep in mind we're dealing with multiple manufacturers, each with their own makes and models. These come in different screen sizes, so your app looks different. It can behave different. Different operating system versions, and then on top of that, unique hardware. So ensuring your app runs smoothly across every operating system and each one of these combinations demands far more rigorous testing that you have to keep in mind for mobile development.
The constant maintenance on keeping that up to date as well, Philip, because it's not a stationary environment we're working with it. You spoke about the fragmentation in devices. There's always new players coming into the market. There's always a new device of the minute that's coming in with a different screen resolution. We've seen a huge uptick in foldable phones in the last few years, which is introducing complexity around adapting to different screen sizes that can be as vast as right up to a tablet-sized device, right down to that tiny small square screen on a Motorola Razr, for example. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the wearables. You've got the consideration of you have to be able to run on an Apple smartwatch. There's all of that, and that's just in the market now. When you think about the maintenance of your app, you also need to be looking ahead at what's coming in terms of that fragmentation. You mentioned Harmony OS. That's a huge in mainland China right now. If that becomes a major disruptor to the market, then it's something we need to think about, particularly in New Zealand, where we have obviously a lot of variation in the devices that we see, including Fourie devices.
So looking forward to my XR glasses that Santa's going to bring me this year. So that'll be a whole other different space.
The live translation on those devices, the wearables, look so cool to me. As someone who, if you'd asked me what superpower I wanted years ago, I would have said, I want to be able to speak every language. So we're getting closer to superpowers becoming real, facilitated by tech.
I've got an image of C3PO now.
I want them to be that sassy.
I do think, though, that, like we've just mentioned, that there are a lot of challenges, but I think they're manageable and doable. And choosing or doing I'm going to say doing the right thing is quite important. And so like I said before, about getting user feedback, very important, because if they're on an edge device, a device that you don't know about or haven't tested for, then you want to be able to respond to it. And then same with the error logging, you want to have really well structured error logging that you get good alerts when things start to happen often. And therefore you can respond and react to it. And then obviously you want to be proactive as well and try to avoid those situations. And I think we can do some of that. I mean, the screen resolution thing, the way we write code for screens, typically the way we do it is that the framework allows us to be adaptive and responsive, but also the way we can test for that stuff, we can test it quite well because we can adjust the viewports and stuff that we're using. And then the simulators we have allow us to test different devices to some extent. Obviously, there are still going to be edge cases with hardware challenges. But I think, I think the market's fairly mature. And if someone put a device out there with an odd camera interface, then that product probably isn't going to get a lot of traction. So I think it does mellow out a little bit.
A little bit standardized.
We've also got the counter to that, actually, Hamish. While you're talking about it, I'm realizing that a lot of our problems are less about what's coming and more about what's been. It's about still putting things in place that can that work really well on modern devices, but also having enough stability within the code to maintain usage for users on older devices and particularly on older operating systems. That's why if you're on an older device, you're on an older operating system, occasionally you will see an app prompting you to update your device or your device OS. It is because sometimes maintaining the ability to align with older OS versions is more difficult than aligning to those future cases. The future's interesting, though.
Yes, I think very much so. We kind of talked a little bit about, I guess, what's up and coming and what's new. What else is changing? Dare I say it? The word GenAI. How's that impacting mobile?
Cool. That's going to be massive, and I think we're going to see a lot of chat agent type things that you can talk to. We're going to end up with Alexa on roids, basically. And it's going to be a little bit scary, and there will be a big flurry to try and modify things to do that. And you may even end up with apps that don't really have a user interface because they just get plugged in automatically to another agent. So these things called MCP service, Model Context Protocol, you might be able to have something that plugs into the chatbot and you can say, order me a pizza, please. And because you've ordered before or whatever, it knows what your preferences are and it knows where you like to get it from. It knows your credit card number. It'll go and order the pizza for you. And it might even come back with a question, what time do you want that? Do you want it straight away or do you want it later if you didn't provide that context? So, and obviously that could be taken to a whole lot of different things. Yeah, so that's going to be pretty crazy and interesting going forward.
Yeah, MCP for servers, 1000% Hamish, the next big thing. And it's cool seeing how they work. So for those that are unfamiliar with them, they sort of, Hamish explained it partially, but it's like the middle layer between your LLM and your services. So it allows your services to be future-proofed against model changes. So it's sort of agnostic to what model you're using, be it the variety of different ones we have on the market now, or any of the ones that are up and coming. And it makes them a bit more useful, because what we've seen so far is that these AI agents are really great for talking to. They're really great at providing information, but they're not necessarily great at doing things for you. We've seen them being joined with tools at the moment, but the introduction of MCP really changes the game, because it allows for that vision, right, of your AI working as your personal assistant. A personal assistant wouldn't be very valuable if every time they needed to do something, they had to come back to you and be like, I've compiled all the information, now you do it. It's not helpful to me. It's gonna, particularly when it comes to mobile apps, it's gonna introduce some really cool things, like what Hamish was talking about with apps talking to each other. Like, I'm envisioning that sort of multi-app compatibility, where, for example, my fitness tracker would talk to my AI agent on my device and go, look, these are the steps, this is her fitness goals. Great, we're ordering the groceries on her grocery app this week. Let's make sure we're aligning her macros to that. It's gonna create some really awesome opportunities within the mobile app space to be really creative and to think really broad scale.
So I'm thinking, is going to ask Hamish, do you really want pineapple with that, and make to use it? No pizza for you, for your fitness tracking, right?
Yeah, she might be carbo loading for an event. I don't know. After an event where you need lots of fats too.
It's going to give me that cauliflower base that no one has ever wanted or asked.
So I guess, kind of been talking a little bit about it already, again, kind of drifting into different topics. And it's really, what does the future look like for mobile apps? How will the average person be using them in 2 years' time? And it kind of sounds like they won't. The apps will be running themselves, and we'll have this tight little integrated ecosystem where everything's being done for us, which sounds great.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what it's going to look like in 2 years' time, but I'm willing to bet that it's going to be much different than the last 2 years. The last 2 years were a much smaller evolution of changes, I think, with the technologies that we've just mentioned. We can't imagine on how things are going to change yet. I think some of the things that I'm excited about is that we sit on these powerful devices where we can run AI on the edge, or shall we say in your pocket. So we're well positioned with these mobile applications to do a lot of interesting things. A couple of the other wearables that is going to change the way we behave as well as these AI pins, such as Claude, that passively records your conversations every day and record it and sends it to these LLMs. And this, as you said as well, those smart glasses on Google's next iteration on what they're innovating on, it's just going to change the way that we interact with the world. So it's exciting times.
My second brain is just going to be somebody I talk to. It will record all my conversations during the day, and then I'll talk to it later on and say, what did Philip tell me about? What was I supposed to do for him?
God knows I need that. That brain fog is very real. I don't know. In terms of mobile app, I really see it being like much more thinned down. Think really thin clients with smart backends. So rather than having to customize your backend for every possible scenario, you're really leaning on the LLM and the MCP to determine what the sort of responses should be, what the sort of actions should be. So I think I kind of see us moving towards a situation where it's the LLM is almost driving the UX in a way to alleviate some of those issues we've seen on mobile. But again, all of this becomes very sci-fi at a certain point. The only thing we can predict is that whatever we predict now, we'll laugh about in 5 years, either for how accurate, but also how tiny we were thinking, or it'll be like watching the hoverboards in Back to the Future, and we'll just be resentful that we haven't got there yet.
Yeah. I think to ground it though, we need, like if you're an app developer or asking for an app to build or have an app, then you still need to be listening to what the customer wants. And I think you've got to figure out when audio is good and when audio is not good. And there's going to be times where a visual user experience can tell you a whole lot more, a whole lot faster than listening to something talk to you, and to match users' attention span. And also sometimes with entry of stuff, it may be faster to go tap tap as opposed to spell out a whole bunch of things. So I think it's pretty important to sort of listen to customers and actually figure out what is going to work for them.
That's where that feedback loop that you were talking about earlier, Hamish, comes in handy.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think it's done well enough, often enough. Yeah.
The other side of it is and we're getting almost dangerously sci-fi now, but when we think about apps versus mobile apps versus web apps and the physical hardware we're running them on, I think in a couple of years we're going to see a real need to be able to determine biometrically whether whoever we're talking to is a very sophisticated AI or a person. And that's where mobile apps are going to become really useful, and the fact that we've got the hardware to be able to facilitate some of those determinations. Case in point, the Google ML kit facial detection. If we're going to have to move towards validating our humanity or our humanness to engage with certain tools or engage with things digitally, that's going to be a really cool, interesting space that we're going to see some changes in.
Yeah, absolutely. We were kind of talking about that in a previous podcast around what that looks like. How are we going to validate, between a real human and a deep fake? And I can see the vendors are thinking about it and bringing in toolkits to help with that. So it's great to see that evolving pretty quickly, because I think we need that to have trust in the technology as it moves forward. Oh, right. Well, thanks, guys, for your time. It's been really great talking to you. Just before I let you go, quick fire question I need to know from each of you. What's your favorite, coolest app at the moment? Hamish.
Oh, I go. Mine's a little bit retro and boring. It's called Habit Kit, and it's just about maintaining your habits. So it's a little thing that you just tap off each day, and it asks you whether you've done something each day. But I think it's pretty smart. It's pretty tidy. Yeah.
Philip?
I recently rediscovered an app. It's called Readwise, but Readwise launched a new reader app. And what it's doing, it is a app where when you see any interesting blogs, tweets, or any other reading material, you can mark it for readers later. So when I am in a mood for reading, I can then work through that list, but not only read through it, but I can also annotate on it. And the annotations I can do on my phone or on my web browser or even my Kindle. And then all my annotations are then synced back into my favorite note keeping app. So it's super useful to help you to remember what you've read.
Awesome. And Meg, what's your app of the day?
Mine's in a very similar vein to Philip's, actually. Notebook LM by Google. It's a great annotation tool, note-taking tool. It's collaborative AI note-taking tool. It's sort of podcasts based on your own PDFs, and it's got a beta mode at the moment where you can actually engage with the content, ask questions, create this almost like back and forth. This is very meta interactive podcast about the content you've fed it. And I can actually see a use case for it for going forward for education, for example, for teachers using it, their students, for example, as a way of doing that collaborative note-taking, collaborative research. In a way. And the other ones I'm using frequently at the moment are Gemini via Family Link, really useful for setting up parental controls, although there's not much at the moment, and a bit of a retro one as well. BorrowBox is great for ebooks if you have a local library card. My local library has a ton of ebooks available on BorrowBox, and it's quite nice to be able to just check things out from the couch.
Great tip. Thanks, Meg. Cool. Well, thanks, everyone. Again, it's been great having a chat with you about mobile app dev and where we're heading. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, everyone.